My name is Mangi Mbileni. I'm a storyteller, first and foremost, but in this particular case, a visual storyteller. I think I've sort of tried my hand at directing. I'm a producer, content producer, and a partner at Level Fair Production, which is a content creation agency. I was born in Soweto. I grew up, I spent the first sort of formative years in Soweto before we moved out. Growing up, I really saw myself playing professional soccer one day. Really, I saw myself playing professional soccer one day. I just thought to myself, if I can get through this whole schooling system and then maybe get a shot at Wits and play for Wits and somehow, some way see myself playing sort of PSL, I'm happy. I've done it all. But that was always my dream. But sort of storytelling for me also came as like a very natural second option. When I was still at school in Soweto, before going to the burbs, as sort of a lot of people ended up going to, I remember it must have been like 93 or 92 or 93, one of those 2 years. They actually brought Sarafina, the feature film, to my school, and they put it up and they projected it for everyone to see. That was like the first film I ever watched, I guess a big screen, if you want to call it that. And I was just like blown away. I was fascinated, but not just by the medium, but just by this idea of having to construct this story and just what an impact that story potentially has on an audience, because it had a huge impact on me. And I could relate to some of those issues. I could see myself, in terms of the representation. And I was like, God, this is definitely something I'd love to tap into. So I'm, yeah, a very inquisitive kid. My strength always lied in art and history and English and just in communicating. So I was never like, I'm definitely gonna get into film or TV. I just knew that storytelling has to play a big part of my journey. After matric, I went to varsity in Cape Town. I didn't do there's a lot of people in our industry that, went straight the film route. I wasn't 1,000% sure which sort of exact direction I wanted to go. But what I knew is that I wanted to work in the media. I wanted to work with storytelling, regardless of the medium. So I think that's what led me to sort of deciding to go to UCT. So I studied film and media in my undergrad, and I was like, I really wanted to actually specialize in film, but you couldn't do that in first year, so you could only do that in second year. And so then I didn't get into like the film specific field, even though I was still majoring in film. So then I got into radio production and not film production. I was quite bummed about that, but I continued doing, sort of going on my film journey throughout my university career, and then whilst majoring in radio production as well. So that's essentially how I landed up in radio. When I got back, I actually got offered a job initially in Cape Town whilst I was still studying as a student. And I was like, there's just no chance. Like, I really want to go back to Joburg. I really want to go back home. I'm done with Cape Town, So I made that try. I came back home with no job offer or, no employment per se. But what I did then is I enrolled at the Wits Radio Academy, and they gave me a full bursary, which was really, really cool. So I was like, okay, cool. At least I'm not going to sit on my ass for some time. It was a 1-year program. So I did that, but I think in the second month of that, and then I approached the station manager at a actually talk radio station, and he gave me a shot, and I literally started working the following week after that as a freelance producer, and then finally working my way to being a senior producer on some of the biggest radio shows at the time with Reedy Clubby, and a whole host of other well-renowned sort of talk show hosts. And I think for me, the lessons I learned there really laid the foundation for what would be my next step in terms of my journey as a media professional, and that I was a content producer And I think the fundamentals are literally the same when it comes to content production. You know, there's a big part of it is research. There's a big part of it is making those phone calls, scheduling, etc., etc. A big part of it is that, and then being able to tell the story. You know, so I really applied those lessons going into my next job. I remember what I watched V Entertainment one day, and I was like, this is a really dope show. I said, and it was doing like some like really cool things that were quite groundbreaking at the time. So this is like 2010, 2011. Yeah, I was around 2011. And I was like, they were doing some really groundbreaking stuff in terms of the entertainment space. And I was like, well, I think I could fit in like really well. Plus, I'm tired of talk radio now. I'm tired of this adult thing. I think that's why my mom thought I was a journalist. And so I just sent them an email. I remember I watched the credit and I sent them an email, a company called Afrikaans. And at the time they said, look, we're not taking anyone in or anything along those lines, but come a time where maybe we'll get back to you. And you know, you just think to yourself, well, okay, whatever. And I just continued with my life, working in radio. And then like 6 months later, I just got this email to be like, yo, listen, are you keen to meet with us? Da, da, da. And I was like, what? This is crazy. So I met with the guys that run the company. And literally, I think about a week or two later, I started working as a content producer then for V Entertainment. And that was a whole new journey altogether. I worked at this production company that was producing VNs, or at least the news inserts for V Entertainment for numerous years, almost 5 years. But in that, I had grown and we had completely changed the show itself. And, you know, I think we did a great job even in creating this, what we see now as like a celebrity culture in South Africa. I think that show played a huge role in that. But I sort of had reached the ceiling. And in between that, I worked on various productions. We worked on, a couple of other like reality shows and that. But for me, I felt like I had reached the ceiling. And in my attempts to try to grow myself and sometimes, those kind of decisions are met with resistance in the sense that maybe the company that you work for isn't going that direction, So it's like, they can't quite accommodate what you aspire to achieve, but so essentially you need to make decisions then, which is what I did. I figured, well, I can't continue doing this unless I can find a new role within the business. I'm probably going to have to step out quite soon. But before getting there, I had worked with my now business partner. We actually worked on a documentary together, like maybe a year prior to that, which we never actually ever put out. But we just wanted to see. We wanted to produce this thing. And we worked with a famous musician called Kid Funk here in South Africa. And I mean, he loved the documentary. And like, he hounded us for ages, like, guys, let's put this thing out. But we were so like self-conscious about the product that we didn't end up putting out. We were like, this shot wasn't good. This interview wasn't great. We never ended up putting it out. But that allowed us to work together to see how we could potentially, partner up for future projects. And then we started an online web series called Unfiltered. And through that, we realized that, okay, cool, like we've got a product now and we worked really, really well together. And then we were approached by a sort of blue chip company to be like, this is really cool. They saw this online. They were like, this is really cool. Can you produce something like this for us for, leading up to a particular campaign? We were like, sick, of course we can. And it was a paying job, so we got the check there and we're like, dude, we could, if we like really put our mind to it, we could probably make this work and make it a business venture. And that's essentially what led us to finally taking that plunge. My business partner at the time was also working for like a company, also a blue chip company. And we just decided, well, like, let's go for it. We've got nothing to lose, essentially. We're both comfortable with where we are, and we're both ready for that next phase in our lives. And then we decided to set up Love Affair Production. Anyone who tells you that they had no stresses and they went into entrepreneurship and it was smooth sailing from the jump is lying. Straight up. It's like 24-hour stress. And so after we sort of registered the company, we registered the company in December, but even prior to registering the company, we're already in talks with another company who wanted to produce like a series of documentaries, and we were like, that's great, but these things take time before you finally get to actually making the thing. And I think for the first couple of months, maybe like the first 3 months, like absolutely nothing. We knew, so we'd already signed this thing to like, we're definitely shooting this and producing these documentaries in the new year. But as to when exactly we're gonna start, we weren't sure. We ended up starting, I think it was April, sort of mid-April of the new year. So can you imagine the first was Jan, Feb, March, like just nothing, no work coming in, nothing. I was also quite foolish in not saving enough money for for this thing. I was like living la vida. I was like, oh, I'm gonna start this thing, and in that sense, I probably should have been better prepared. But the first 3 months where you absolutely getting nothing, there's no income, you really start thinking to yourself, have I made the right decision? But in between that, I think for me, what's really driven me is that in between that, crazy enough, I got approached for 3 job offers, 3 like separate job offers. I think maybe somehow, some way, someone said, look, Mangi's actually done with this thing. He's going to start his own thing, or Mangi's free. And I turned all of them down. And I was like, I've made this decision. I hope this decision works out. So I think when we started with our first production, then I was like, okay, we're working now. And it was, I mean, I won't lie to you, it was like a decent paycheck then to sort of smooth the tide a bit, and then to see us through to the second half of the year. And I think that sort of stress then subsided, and we, I guess, have managed to deal with the day-to-day challenges and the challenges of running a business as and when they come. I think the biggest challenge though for us was because we've set up this thing from scratch, with not necessarily like a production in the bag already or a big deal in the bag. We actually started off with my friend's brother gave us a 20K like interest-free loan. He was like, dude, you dudes will pay me back when you can, which was really kind of him. So we started with that, and we're also fortunate to have quite a fair amount of our own gear from just working, and collecting throughout the years. And so we could at least hit the ground running in that sense. We weren't stressed too much. And at least our families were quite understanding in that they'll help out here and there. Hey, nishoda nge-rent ngapha, nishoda ngani ngani ngapha. So, they'll help us out in that regard. But it's been tough, man. It's been tough. But I think for me, the biggest lesson and what I've taken out from that is that I really know my business inside out. There's no part in the last 3.5 years. There's no part of it I haven't been involved in. Whether it's the legalese, whether it's the sort of the finances and the monies and the accounts, or the actual productions, and that it's like I've been fully involved in it, so that to this point where I'm like, you can't lie to me, you can't, you can't shortchange me on this, and that helps also in giving you value out there. You learn so much about yourself, and you learn so much about what you can do and the product that you produce, and that you can sort of almost command what you feel is due to you. In terms of the end game, I've never seen myself as like that person where I'm like, oh, when I finally win the Oscar, then I'm done. I can call it a day, although that would be nice, of course. I've never said that to myself. I've always said I'd love to continuously evolve and continuously to grow. So even with what I'm doing now, I mean, I'm studying towards my master's, and that's focusing on directing and focusing on screenwriting. It's something that I want to perfect, and it's something that I want to hone, so so that I can sort of take this and as a craft and literally grow it, not just as a person, but grow my company and really make a difference in the sense of, I think people underestimate how much stories change lives. One of the programs that I watched as a kid was Yizo Yizo. That completely changed everything for me. I was like, this is incredible. This is it. This is what I want to do, And I think if I can change people's lives in that way. You know, even if I change 10 people's lives, for me, then I feel like I really would have answered my calling. We have a long way to go. I look at my peers, and I think maybe it's a millennial thing. You sometimes look around and you feel like fuck, this person is gone and they're doing so well, and this one just scooped up hella safters, and this one just did this, and this one is right now traveling the world and doing this and this, and then you feel, you get like, oh my god, what am I doing? I feel like I'm not going anywhere. But I'm very like sort of steadfast on my vision and my journey, and yeah, I think I have a long way to go. I think a SAFTA would be nice, and I think a feature film under my belt would be nice, but we're really like focusing. So my biggest focus now is on sort of digital video production, but also just in creating a platform where we feel like this is a platform that's going to not only allow us to house our stories or house our content. We're building a platform where we can then aggregate content from other regions within the African continent to showcase, but also to give, I think, young people an opportunity to, or not just young people, but people an opportunity to have a platform where they can have their stuff there, but also other people can see it and be like, oh God, maybe we should develop this into this and this, and or should, whether it's a broadcaster or a VOD service, whatever the case may be. That's like my next big thing, is that there's a lot of potential within the digital content space, and that's where I see my next move going towards.